In this tutorial, we will have a look at some exam board pseudocode and try to write a program to solve a particular problem. In these situations, it's always a good idea to have a good read through and make sure you understand the scenario before you attempt to write any code. So we're being asked to write some pseudocode that asks for parking time for a car and charges 80 pence or 0.8 pounds per hour for every hour over a 20-minute free period. Note you will be charged for an hour if you park for 25 minutes. So this is a fairly common situation. A car park will allow you a 20-minute free waiting period, but if you stay any more than 20 minutes, you pay for each hour that you're going to use, even if you're 1 minute over the 20-minute free period. So we're going to approach this by trying to use the DALICO method. DALICO, declare, assign, loop, input, calculations, output. And we'll see if this will apply to our scenario. So the first thing we need to do is figure out what information needs to be collected and what information needs to be stored. So we are going to declare. We're using capitals for our keywords like declare. And we want to ask for a parking time. So declare park time, and I've used camel case here, little p but capital T for the new word in the middle. So declare park time. Now parking time is going to be, it's per hour, but I'm going to ask for the number of minutes. So I'm going to use whole minutes, and I'm going to declare park time as an integer. Okay, and we're then going to want to have the money that we are charging, and it looks as if we're writing things as 0.8 pounds here, so I'm going to declare the charge, and that is going to be of type real, so that we can use a decimal point. We've declared. We may come back and declare some other things. It's always a good idea to leave a little bit of a space in case you need to go back and fill something in that you'd forgot about. We've declared, and we're then going to assign any starting values. We don't need to have a starting value for the parking time because we're going to ask the user for that. So anything that's going to be an input, you probably don't need to have a starting value for. However, the charge, we know that we've got free parking if we're less than 20 minutes. So we're going to start and say that the charge, and notice it popped into a capital version there, so I'm just going to undo that with Control Z. So charge has a starting value of 0. Now it's helpful if it's a real number to write it as 0.00 so that we know that it is money we're dealing with here. Okay, I've declared and I've assigned DA, so I'm on to L and choosing my loop. And I need to work my way through deciding which kind of loop to use. Do I know how many times I'm going to loop here? And the answer is no. We don't know when we're starting how many minutes or how many hours that we're going to be using. Can we use a repeat until? Repeat until our time is up? Well, that's not really very helpful here at the moment. And in particular, because we might be getting a free session, we might never be charged anything. So in this case, we're going to use a while loop to calculate how many hour periods to pay for. So our charge is going to start out at 000, and we are going to use a while loop. Now before we start working out how many hours to pay for, we need to find out how much time is going to be spent. So I'm going to always prompt before I use an input. I'm going to say print how many minutes do you want to park? And then I'm going to input park time. Now that I know how many minutes I've got, I can then start to use that to work out how much to charge. I need to charge 80 pence for every hour. Well, what I'm going to say is while, and I only charge if the number of minutes is more than 20. So while park time is greater than 20, do. And at the end of it, I'm going to have an end while. So I've declared, I've assigned, I've set up a loop, and now I indent and go inside this loop to do what I need to. Now we talk about DALICO, D-A-L-I-C-O, so I for input is usually contained inside the loop, but in this case we've already supplied the information. We've already supplied the park time. So inside our loop we are going to figure out how many hours that we've had and charge for each of them. So I'm going to say that charge takes the value of charge plus 0.80. And again, notice capitals need to be consistent. If I've called it little charge, then that should be used throughout my code. So I'm charging 80 pence for an hour there, and that means that I have to have used that up. I have to say that park time is going to be reduced by 60 minutes. And so that should work out 80 pence per hour, and that's fine. And at the end of it, I would then print, you will be charged, I'll stick a pound sign in, and then charge. Now, if we think this through, have we covered everything that we need to? Well, if we spent 15 minutes and worked this through, we would say input 15, while part-time is bigger than 15, which it isn't, so it would skip all that, and it would say you'd be charged 0, and that's fine. If we were in for 40 minutes, it would come to here, it would say while park time is bigger than 20, which it is. We'd add 80 pence on, we'd take 60 off of 40, that would give minus 20, so it wouldn't repeat the loop, and we would be charged 80 pence. But what if we were going to be there for 65 minutes? Now 65 minutes is 1 hour and then another hour. We've gone into the second hour. So what's going to happen here? Well, we start off with a charge of 0. We say part-time is 65. We ask if it's bigger than 20, which it is, so we charge 80 pence. We take 60 away from it, which leaves 5 minutes. And then while park time is bigger than 20, while 5 is bigger than 20 doesn't happen, so we would only be charged 80 pence there, even though we've gone into a second hour. So we have a problem with our code, which needs to be fixed. And what we really need to do here is to think about this 20 minutes of free time. What we should do is we should say here, if park time is greater than 20, then, and then we should move in all of that code there, and we should have an end if. We're only going to calculate if we spent more than 20 minutes. And instead of saying while the part-time is bigger than 0, we then say while the part-time is bigger than 0. And that will allow us to count whole hours. So for every hour that we're there, we'll take away 60 minutes, which means it should calculate correctly. And for that, we will charge a whole 80 pence, and that should also calculate correctly. So it's always a good idea to dry run some of your code, check it with a few different values, and see whether it makes sense before you decide that the whole thing is completed.